Hi guys, and welcome to the Stephen King Sematary Club. Gerald's Game. This book, this is what it looks like. And I will just show you right now the sister book, Dolores Claiborne. And I thought that I lost this. I was pretty sure I had it, but I couldn't remember. So I went looking for it, and I thought I was going to have to repurchase it, which, if you've read Dolores Claiborne, I was not looking forward to. I was just going to borrow it from the library and call it good. With Gerald's Game, I had not read this book until I got it from the Stephen King library. It seemed like a very adult book, and I started reading Stephen King when I was 11, so it just was one that I always passed over in favor of another book, and I knew eventually I would get to it. And it is a very much adult book, but now that I appreciate psychological horror more than I did as a kid, it is a good book. It's a very heavy read, and it makes me angry through a lot of it, but it is a good book. We have a map. We also have an illustration, this, which does match the illustration at the beginning of Dolores Claiborne. Same style. But the map is of Maine. And there is the path of the eclipse, which is a main point in this book. There is no Jerusalem's Lot on this map, which pisses me off because Derry's in here and Castle Rock is also in here. So tell me why. This book centers on one person. There are some other characters who come in and out, but this really is a story about Jessie. She's married to Gerald. They go for a whirlwind, last-minute getaway to their summer cabin, and it's October. So already it has similarities with The Raft, where these kids go out to this lake when no one else is around because it's not the summertime. Gerald is a lawyer. He and Jessie have been married for 17 years, and lately he has gotten it into his head that he likes kinky sex with handcuffs. Or restraints, because I guess they started without handcuffs. And Jessie is starting to get tired of it, but Gerald really enjoys this, so he wanted to try the handcuffs at the cabin. They get up there, it's deserted. It's fun in the moment, but when you start to realize how isolated you are and how many things could go wrong, like you're gonna deal with in a Stephen King book, it is very scary. So we begin, and Jessie has just been handcuffed to the bed, and she has two handcuffs. She's not handcuffed with both of her hands in the same set. She has one set for each hand attached to the headboard. Most of the things she does would have been impossible with just one set of handcuffs. So Gerald has locked her in, and he has placed the keys on the dresser. So Jessie feels demeaned, and she no longer wants to play this game. And she tells Gerald, but he is pouting, and he does not want to let her go. He kind of makes a vague threat. What happens if I don't let you out of these handcuffs? And she's horrified, and rightly so, The fact that he would willingly ignore her uncomfortable situation and proceed anyway, that's not really a good relationship. She realizes that he's gonna rape her, and she has these internal voices. So this whole book is an internal monologue between her and her voices. I know I've said before, I just can't get over the fact that some people don't have an inner monologue. It baffles me. So she has a voice that tells her, you can't let him treat you like this. And so she kicks him. She kicks him in the chest and in the groin. He has a heart attack and proceeds to fall off the bed. So she is literally chained up. He has a medical incident, falls off the bed. She hears a thunk, which is his head, and we just know he's dead. It's October. She's on a lake in the middle of nowhere. No one knows to look for them. It's just worst case scenario. So now we just get this extreme fear extreme isolation, extreme introspection. It's just all happening within the first chapter. This kicks all of this off. And then it's just like one thing builds on another. She already has to pee. There's a stray dog that has been running around outside. Its owner abandoned it. It's been abandoned for weeks. The last several days it hasn't found anything to eat. They had left the door ajar when they went into the cabin. So the dog comes in, starts eating Gerald, starts eating his corpse. So she is horrified and she yells at it, but what can she do? She's tied up. The dog realizes that she's not going to be able to come after it. And so the dog kind of eats Gerald, and then when it gets unbearable, he just takes a chunk of Gerald to go and leaves and then can come back at will. All Jessie has to do at this point is ponder her situation and ponder some traumatic experience that happened to her that we start learning bits and pieces of. And you wouldn't think this would work, but it is a very fascinating read. So she's dredging up these repressed memories of when she was a kid, I think 10 or 11, and her family was staying at Dark Score Lake, which is more north of where she is now. And it was during the total eclipse of 1963, and her dad sexually molested her. And we get all these pieces of what happened in segments throughout the book. She remembers some things, and then something will snap her back into the present time. We don't get the full story of what happened with her father until more toward the, late half of the book. But you already know, and you already know that she's repressed it and buried it and made excuses for it when it comes up and has made a weird peace with it. And you're just sitting there horrified and awestruck at some of the things that get revealed piece by piece. So we get this gripping saga of the water glass. She's thirsty. She's really thirsty. She goes through the whole process of getting the water glass that Gerald had left on his side of the shelf that hangs above the bed. She has to tip it. She has to edge the water glass down toward her. She has to get it to where she can actually reach her hands up and grip it. This whole time she's losing sensation in her arms and her hands. She's tried pulling her hands out of the handcuffs. It doesn't work. She is getting cramps and Charlie horses in all of her muscles. The whole thing is so relatable and so effectively terrifying because you can imagine yourself in this exact situation. You can feel what she is experiencing, and it's just bone-chilling. So she finally gets the water glass, and when she pulls it toward her to drink, she realizes that the handcuff stops her hand too far away from her mouth. So it's one of these things where every little win that she experiences, something sets her back. So then she has to go about fashioning a straw out of one of those magazine inserts, little paper inserts that come asking you to subscribe and all that stuff. So she rolls that up and she's able to make a long straw that she's able to stick into the glass. You're rooting for her this whole time. It's a really good book of, perseverance. She has nightmares. She keeps falling in and out of sleep. The dog keeps coming back and grabbing pieces of Gerald and then runs off. At one point she wakes up and there's a man standing in her room in the corner, blended into the shadows. And she thinks it's her dad. She's been having dreams about the past and the present situation, and she sees this creepy guy standing there who is quite inhuman looking. He has a very large head, long arms, long hands. He does not look human. He looks like something that has been made up in her mind. So it's a boogeyman of sorts, and she can't stand it because she's tied. She can't escape. So she's tied up having to look at this nightmare that she thinks she created out of nothing. And when she's kind of conflating it with her father and all that stuff, she spreads open her legs and says, "I'll let you do whatever you want as long as you release me afterward," which is a sad thing and understandable also. The figure approaches her with a wicker basket, kind of holds out to her and starts rummaging through it, and it's full of bones and rings, jewels, teeth, just little trinkets. So she falls into a dream again. She ends up dreaming about the sexual molestation. And her father is so abhorrent. He is just extremely terrible. And the whole time you're thinking, how could a dad do this to his child? It's so gross. And You know this stuff happens. That's the other thing. You know, it's not like Stephen King invented this and no one else has ever experienced this. You know this kind of shit goes on. It's infuriating. It makes you grateful that your own parents didn't treat you like this. It's terrible. And when she's remembering this, she remembers afterward that she had this kind of cross connection with a woman. And the way it's described, we know it's Dolores Claiborne. So these are sister books. They came out the same year. Even if you haven't read the one, you kind of know that's what it is. Jesse's father, he convinces her that they should keep this a secret between the two of them. And the way he does it is so manipulative. He appeals to her sense of shame, and he immediately comes out and says that they should tell, and she begs him not to. So when Jessie comes back to her current situation, she sees a footprint near Gerald's body and a little earring. She knows that those things were not there beforehand, and she knows that she had recently had people come in to wax the floor. So anything on the floor is going to have gotten there in the last 12 hours since she and Gerald arrived. So she tries pulling her hands out of the handcuff again. It's not working. She realizes that she is going to die. There's no help for her. No one is going to come save her. She is in an impossible situation. So the little shelf above the bed holds a sample bottle of lotion. She tries to lubricate her hand to pull her hand out, but the dog comes back in and scares her and she drops the thing. So that plan is just ruined. So one of the voices in her head says, you know what else is a very slippery solution? Blood. So Jessie ends up visualizing the whole thing, which reminds me of Mark in Salem's Lot, where he visualizes his escape before he even attempts it. She breaks the water glass and she manages to just start cutting away at her wrist. And things are bleeding. She's concerned that if she loses too much blood, she'll pass out and just die anyway. And she ends up, I think it was termed degloving her hand, which makes your skin crawl when you think about it. You realize that you would have to do the same, and it just is the thought of it, the delicateness of your hand and just tearing at it with such enthusiasm is really, really disturbing to think about. So she manages to slip her hand out of the handcuff due to all the blood and the skin loss. She manages to push the bed the rest of the way to the dresser, gets the other key. There's a whole thing where she drops one of the keys. Luckily there are two keys. She unlocks herself, so now she's free. She goes to the bathroom, she gets water, she bandages herself as best she can, she passes out. She wakes up and the creepy night visitor, her boogeyman, is back. Now it's nighttime. The phone doesn't work in the bedroom. She was just gonna run out and take the car and leave. She panics, she takes her rings off and throws them into the wicker basket, and she books it out of there as best she can. She drives away, she crashes her car into a tree, wakes up the next morning, everything is still workable with her car. She drives into town, and some of the people who are staying around help her get to the hospital. So now she is writing about the events to a friend, one of the friend whose voices was in her head the whole time, helping her get through this situation. We get to Raymond Andrew Joubert. Joubert? I don't know what his name is, it's some French name. Apparently he has a condition, which means his head is large, his arms are super long, his hands are long. The guy in her room was real. The guy was real! And the police had been looking for him since the mid-80s. He's desecrated graves, he violates corpses, he steals things, and he goes around to summer homes when people aren't there and steals valuables. So he was actually in her room the whole time. We were thinking it was a figment of her imagination or maybe even something supernatural, but he was real. Right after Jessie got released and she went through her hospitalization period where she was getting treated for her hands and whatnot, he got caught by Norris Ridgwick from Castle Rock. And Jessie becomes obsessed with finding out about this Joubert guy because she wants to know that he is not a threat to her. So she goes to his arraignment and he's not paying attention, he's just sitting there drawing. And she starts whispering at him like, hey, you, look at me. He finally looks at her and he recites the things she had told him in the room. Quote, I don't think you're anyone, you're only made of moonlight. And then he holds his hands up in a pantomime of someone in handcuffs. And he starts rattling the imaginary handcuffs. So it's just, that is such a chilling end. She spits at him, which she'll have to pay a fine for. And then she goes home and she finishes this letter that she's writing to Ruth. And it's just a nice, happy end. So I appreciate this story so much more now that I'm older. And I don't think I would have gotten a lot out of it as a kid. So next week we will do Dolores Claiborne, which I am pretty sure the reason I only have it in paperback is because I did not like it. And I did not read it more than the one time. So we'll find out. Have a spooky day.